we're going to need a bigger boat. Jaws wasn't just a movie about a shark terrorizing a beach town. It was a 159-day nightmare that nearly destroyed Steven Spielberg's career before it even began. Featured 3 mechanical sharks that refused to work and accidentally created the summer blockbuster format that still dominates Hollywood today. Picture this: a 26-year-old director fighting massive mechanical failures while floating on the unpredictable Atlantic Ocean, actors getting seasick during crucial scenes. A production that ballooned from 55 days to 159 days. A mechanical shark nicknamed Bruce that worked about as well as a broken umbrella in a hurricane, and a studio executive who wanted to fire Spielberg halfway through production. Today we're diving deep into 15 wild facts about Jaws that will change how you see this classic forever. From real shark attacks that inspired panic on set to the bizarre reason the shark was named Bruce, we're uncovering the chaos that somehow created cinematic gold. And stick around for our bonus fact at the end. It involves a connection to a future blockbuster that will blow your mind. Let's bite into this story. The shark was named after Steven Spielberg's lawyer. The original Jaws starred not 1 but 3 mechanical sharks, collectively nicknamed Bruce, after director Steven Spielberg's lawyer. But this wasn't some cute Hollywood tribute. Spielberg had been dealing with intense legal pressure from Universal Studios throughout pre-production. The studio questioned every decision he made, from shooting on the ocean to the film's massive budget requirements. The name Bruce became both a running joke and a symbol of the production's biggest headache. Each morning, the crew would ask, "How's Bruce today?" knowing full well that Bruce would probably malfunction within hours. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Both the lawyer Bruce and the mechanical Bruce caused Spielberg endless problems and sleepless nights. What audiences didn't know was that these 3 mechanical sharks cost more than most entire films at the time. Each Bruce was a technological marvel, weighing over a ton, requiring a crew of 14 people to operate. Yet they spent more time being repaired than actually filming. The crew developed a dark sense of humor about their temperamental star, often joking that Bruce the lawyer was more reliable than Bruce the shark. This naming choice would later influence countless film productions, with crews naming their problematic equipment after difficult people in their lives. The production was so chaotic, Spielberg almost got fired. All the setbacks put the film more than 100 days behind schedule and doubled its budget to $8 million. Universal executives were watching their investment hemorrhage money daily. Every morning brought new disasters: Bruce malfunctioning, weather delays, seasick actors, and equipment failures that left the crew stranded at sea. The studio brought in accountants to monitor every expenditure. They questioned whether Spielberg, who was only 26 and had directed just 1 feature film, could handle such a massive production. Rumors spread through Hollywood that Universal was preparing to replace him with a more experienced director. The pressure became so intense that Spielberg later admitted he would wake up with panic attacks. What saved Spielberg's job wasn't studio confidence, it was the dailies. Despite the chaos, the footage he captured was extraordinary. The tension between actors felt real because they were genuinely stressed. The fear in their eyes wasn't just acting, it was authentic terror from working in unpredictable ocean conditions. "We didn't know how they were ever going to finish this movie," remembers Jeffrey Kramer, who played a sheriff's deputy in the film. "There were rumors all around the set that the studio might shut down production entirely. Instead, those near-impossible conditions forged a masterpiece. The mechanical sharks only worked 25% of the time. Throughout production, the film's animatronic sharks, all nicknamed Bruce, often malfunctioned in the saltwater of Martha's Vineyard, shorting out and causing countless production delays and budget overages. The mechanical failures weren't occasional hiccups, they were constant disasters that nearly broke the production. Bruce was designed to work in controlled studio conditions, not the corrosive saltwater environment of Martha's Vineyard. The electronics would short out, hydraulic systems would freeze, and the mechanical joints would seize up from salt buildup. Marty Milner worked on Bruce every night. When the shark retired to Shark City for repairs, a makeshift workshop where technicians performed emergency surgery on the mechanical beast. The crew nicknamed their repair area Shark City because it became their most frequent location. Some days, Bruce would work for mere minutes before breaking down completely. Other days, the shark wouldn't function at all, leaving an entire crew floating aimlessly in the Atlantic while technicians frantically tried to revive their mechanical star. Those finicky sharks may have been beneficial for the production in the end because the constant malfunctions forced Spielberg to find creative alternatives. Instead of showing the shark, he learned to suggest its presence through music, camera angles, and the actors' reactions, techniques that made the film infinitely more terrifying. Martha's Vineyard locals sabotaged the shark. The mechanical sharks of Jaws weren't just fighting saltwater, they were also battling local mischief. Some Martha's Vineyard kids discovered where Bruce was stored and couldn't resist testing the prop. One prank involved placing a mannequin on a raft, only for Bruce to bite through it, sending foam parts scattering across the water. The result looked so extreme that the crew knew it could never be used on screen, but curiosity sometimes turned into sabotage. A few residents felt the Hollywood crew had disrupted their quiet island and began tampering with props or making noise during takes. Fishermen even sailed through carefully staged shots, ruining expensive setups. Spielberg's team eventually hired security to protect the equipment from both people and weather. These unpredictable challenges added thousands of dollars to the budget, proving that the ocean wasn't the only thing working against the film. Human interference played its part too. Roy Scheider was genuinely scared in the shark cage scene. The shark cage sequence, designed to be thrilling on screen, nearly became frightening for real. Roy Scheider, playing Chief Brody, entered the reinforced cage expecting a routine shoot, but when the door jammed, he found himself stuck underwater longer than planned. With his air tank running low, crew members scrambled to free him. Ocean currents made the situation worse, tossing the cage around and slamming Scheider against its steel bars. Cameras also malfunctioned, leaving technicians uncertain about what was happening below the surface. His look of panic in the final footage wasn't just acting. It was fueled by the genuine stress of being trapped in unpredictable conditions. Afterward, Scheider insisted on extra safety checks before re-entering the water, and many of the most dangerous shots were handled by stunt doubles. What remains on film is a blend of performance and authentic unease, giving the scene lasting impact. The film was shot entirely on the open ocean. Once hired, Spielberg laid out his vision for the film. Instead of using a water tank on a backlot, Jaws would be shot in the actual ocean, the first film ever to do so. This decision seemed brilliant in theory, but became a logistical nightmare that nearly destroyed the production. Every day presented new challenges that studio executives couldn't have anticipated. Ocean currents would carry equipment away from the film crew. Tides would change between takes, completely altering the visual continuity of scenes. Weather systems would appear without warning, forcing the entire crew to evacuate dangerous conditions. The unpredictability of ocean filming meant that Spielberg couldn't control basic elements like lighting, background, or even camera stability. Boats would drift during crucial dialogue scenes, ruining hours of carefully orchestrated work. Equipment would malfunction from saltwater corrosion, and replacement parts often took days to arrive on Martha's Vineyard. It was the first major motion picture set at sea to be shot on the ocean, making Spielberg a pioneer in location filming. However, this pioneering spirit came at an enormous cost in time, money, and sanity. The crew worked in conditions that would be considered unthinkable by today's safety standards, creating authentic tension that translated directly onto screen. Richard Dreyfuss had a scare underwater. Richard Dreyfuss, cast as marine biologist Matt Hooper, faced his own frightening moment during underwater filming. While wearing heavy diving equipment, he became disoriented in the murky Atlantic waters near Martha's Vineyard. Strong currents pulled him away from safety faster than expected. and his breathing gear briefly malfunctioned. Rescue divers had difficulty spotting him in the poor visibility, leaving Dreyfuss to rely on his training to stay calm. He eventually managed to surface safely on his own, though visibly shaken. The incident prompted Spielberg to strengthen safety rules for all underwater sequences, ensuring backup divers were always nearby. The scare left Dreyfuss with a deeper respect for the sea's unpredictability. His later scenes carried an added sense of realism. His cautious expressions and measured movements reflected both his character's expertise and his own personal experience with the risks of filming in open water. The Indianapolis speech came from Shaw's research. Robert Shaw's unforgettable monologue about the USS Indianapolis wasn't just a script, it was built from his own research. Believing Quint needed a stronger backstory, Shaw studied naval records and survivor testimonies from the real-life 1945 disaster. He shaped their words into a chilling account of sailors adrift in the Pacific, battling exhaustion, dehydration, and the ever-present fear of sharks. On set, Shaw experimented with different versions of the speech until he found the perfect rhythm. Each take grew heavier with emotion, making it feel like a genuine confession rather than staged dialogue. The moment gave Quint depth, transforming him from a simple shark hunter into a haunted survivor. What made the delivery even more remarkable was Shaw's vulnerability. Nervous about performing the scene, he had a few drinks beforehand, adding a raw, unpolished quality to his performance. The result became one of cinema's most haunting monologues. Universal wanted to fire Spielberg and replace him. Studio executives at Universal were convinced that Spielberg was too young and inexperienced to handle such a massive production. All the setbacks put the film more than 100 days behind schedule and doubled its budget to $8 million. Every delay cost the studio enormous amounts of money, and executives began looking for experienced directors to take over. The studio brought in production managers to oversee Spielberg's every decision. They questioned his shot choices, his pacing, and especially his insistence on showing as little of the shark as possible. Executives couldn't understand why they were spending millions on mechanical sharks that barely appeared in the final film. What saved Spielberg wasn't diplomatic negotiations or studio politics, it was the quality of footage he was capturing. Despite the chaos, the dailies showed extraordinary performances and innovative camera work that impressed even skeptical executives. The tension between actors felt authentic because they were genuinely stressed by the impossible working conditions. However, the pressure nearly broke Spielberg psychologically. He later admitted to having panic attacks and considered quitting filmmaking entirely. The young director was learning to balance artistic vision with commercial pressures under the most extreme circumstances possible. This trial by fire would prepare him for the massive productions that would define his career. But at the time, it nearly ended his career before it truly began. A deleted shark attack was too disturbing. During production, Spielberg planned a scene where the mechanical shark attacked a child's mannequin on a raft. The special effects worked almost too well. When Bruce bit down, the mannequin splintered dramatically, sending foam pieces flying through the water in a way that looked shockingly realistic. Crew members who witnessed the test found the result unsettling, even by 1970s horror standards. Spielberg quickly realized that including the sequence would overwhelm the film's suspense with unnecessary shock value. Instead, he chose to imply danger through clever editing, music, and the actors' reactions. This decision proved wise. By focusing on suggestion rather than graphic detail, Jaws became even more frightening. Viewers imagined the worst without ever seeing it directly, which made the film linger in their minds long after the credits rolled. The unused footage remains a fascinating reminder of how restraint can make horror more powerful. Martha's Vineyard became a real-life shark panic zone. The filming of Jaws created genuine shark hysteria on Martha's Vineyard, even though no real sharks were involved in the production. Local residents began reporting shark sightings that turned out to be driftwood, debris, or their own imagination. The mechanical sharks being transported around the island sparked numerous false alarms and emergency responses. Beach attendance plummeted during the summer of 1974, not because of actual sharks, but because locals associated the film crew's presence with shark danger. Parents kept children away from beaches where filming was taking place, and some residents demanded that the production be shut down for public safety reasons. The irony was that Martha's Vineyard waters rarely contained great white sharks, and certainly not the massive predators depicted in the film. The local ecosystem couldn't support such large marine predators year-round, but the presence of mechanical sharks, combined with constant discussion of shark attacks, created a psychological association that affected the entire community. Local businesses suffered as tourism dropped and residents avoided water activities. The film crew found themselves in the bizarre position of having to reassure locals that their mechanical sharks posed no actual threat. This real-world impact foreshadowed how the completed film would affect beach communities nationwide, creating a shark panic that persisted for decades. The blood was made from household items. The film's spectacular blood effects weren't created with expensive Hollywood special effects. They came from Spielberg's resourcefulness and desperation. The crew mixed various household products to create different types of blood for different scenes. Corn syrup and red food coloring became the base for most blood effects, but different scenes required different consistencies and colors. For underwater scenes, the crew discovered that regular fake blood would disperse too quickly in salt water, becoming invisible within seconds. They experimented with thicker mixtures that would maintain their color and consistency long enough to capture on film. The solution involved combining corn syrup with chocolate syrup and red dye, creating a mixture that would spread dramatically but remain visible underwater. The massive blood explosion when Quint meets his end required gallons of this homemade mixture, pumped through hidden tubes and released at precise moments. The crew had to time the blood release with the mechanical shark's movement, ocean currents, and camera positioning, a coordination nightmare that often required multiple takes. Weather conditions affected blood consistency dramatically. Cold ocean temperatures would thicken the mixture, while hot sun would thin it out. The crew constantly adjusted their recipes based on daily conditions, turning the art department into amateur chemists who understood more about fake blood than some professional special effects teams. Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss didn't get along. The on-screen tension between Quint and Hooper wasn't just acting. It reflected real friction between Robert Shaw and Richard Dreyfuss. Shaw, trained in classical theater, approached his craft with rigorous preparation, while Dreyfuss was more relaxed and instinctive. Their clashing styles quickly turned into personal rivalry. Disagreements escalated during key scenes, particularly around Shaw's carefully rehearsed monologues. When Dreyfuss offered suggestions, Shaw took them as challenges, and heated arguments broke out. At one point, their dispute grew so intense that crew members had to intervene and calm things down. Spielberg recognized that the animosity, though disruptive, added authenticity to their performances. On screen, Quint and Hooper's barbed exchanges feel electric because the actors themselves weren't far from the truth. Ironically, their conflict enhanced the film, giving audiences some of its most memorable character moments born from genuine off-screen tension. The film created the summer blockbuster formula. Universal gave Jaws an unprecedented simultaneous wide release in theaters all across the country. It became the highest-grossing movie of its time, turning Steven Spielberg into a household name. But this wasn't just a successful film. It fundamentally changed how Hollywood operates. Before Jaws, major films opened gradually, starting in a few theaters and expanding based on success. Jaws pioneered the concept of saturation booking, opening simultaneously in hundreds of theaters with massive marketing campaigns. This strategy maximized opening weekend revenues and created the phenomenon of nationwide cultural events centered around movie releases. The film's success proved that audiences would flock to high-concept, thrill-based entertainment during summer months when they were traditionally considered a dead period for serious films. Hollywood studios began planning their biggest releases for summer weekends, creating the blockbuster calendar that still dominates today. It was a film unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a Hitchcock-esque thriller masquerading as a monster movie that combined artistic filmmaking with mass appeal. This balance between quality and commercial success became the template for every major studio release that followed. The merchandising surrounding Jaws also established new precedents for film marketing. Toys, books, soundtracks, and promotional items became crucial revenue streams that sometimes exceeded the film's box office earnings. Every modern blockbuster follows the marketing blueprint that Jaws accidentally created. Steven Spielberg never went swimming again. The traumatic production experience affected Spielberg so profoundly that he avoided ocean swimming for years afterward. The combination of equipment failures, near-death experiences, and constant stress created lasting psychological associations between water and danger. During filming, Spielberg witnessed multiple accidents, equipment failures, and genuine terror from his cast and crew. The unpredictable ocean had nearly killed several people involved in the production, and the director carried personal responsibility for putting everyone in those dangerous situations. The irony wasn't lost on Spielberg. He had created a film about fear of sharks and water that made him genuinely afraid of both. For someone who had grown up loving beach activities, this represented a fundamental change in his relationship with the ocean. The fictional terror he had crafted became his personal reality. Years later, Spielberg admitted that making Jaws taught him to respect nature's power in ways he hadn't understood before. The ocean wasn't just a location or a prop. It was an active participant that could enhance or destroy any filmmaking effort. This respect for natural forces would influence his approach to location filming throughout his career. The experience also taught him that authentic fear creates the most compelling performances. Every moment of terror in Jaws feels real because it was earned through genuine experience with uncontrollable forces. After filming wrapped, the three mechanical Bruce sharks were left in a Sun Valley junkyard, rusting away among scrap metal. For decades, these million-dollar props that once terrified Hollywood sat abandoned and forgotten. In the early 2000s, a film collector stumbled upon one of the originals, though it was barely recognizable. Its metal frame was corroded, its hydraulic systems locked, and its jaws hung open like a fallen giant. After years of restoration, the shark was revived and now stands proudly at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles. From junkyard ruin to museum showpiece, Bruce's journey mirrors the wild production of Jaws itself, a story that looked doomed at every turn, but somehow transformed into one of cinema's greatest legends. Jaws proves that sometimes the greatest films are born from the worst circumstances. Every storm, every broken machine, and every setback forced Spielberg and his team to invent new solutions that made the film more terrifying than if everything had gone as planned. The movie that nearly ended Spielberg's career instead launched him into legend. Ironically, the shark that barely worked created more fear than any flawless monster could have achieved. So next time you watch Jaws, remember that every scare on screen reflects real chaos, genuine pressure, and bold creativity behind the camera. Bruce may have been the name of the mechanical shark, but the true bite came from human determination turning disaster into cinema history. What's the wildest behind-the-scenes story you've ever heard? Drop it in the comments, hit subscribe, and join us for more movie secrets that will change how you see your favorites.